All right, I think we're live. Push one in the chat if you can hear me. All right, cool. Got a confirmation. Thank you for the confirmation. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 840, Black Tech Talk. Please hit the like button to come in, share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust. There's a document in the description of the video for you to follow along with for reference. If you want to join the discussion, there'll be a link in the chat pinned to the top. It's a Zoom link. Make sure your Zoom is up to date before joining. Let me grab that item from the docket and then we can get started. All right, push one in the chat if you can see my screen. All right, let's just get started. This is from the Washington Post. We discussed this probably about a month or so ago in regards to Black men in the IT industry over 50 and over. And what we wanted to do was actually kind of delve into what are some of the obstacles and nuances that are involved in being inside the IT industry at 50 or older. All right, let's just get started. All right, can anybody hear me? Push one in the chat if you can hear me. All right, let's try this again. Let me share my screen. Push one in the chat if you can see my screen. All right, I think I figured out what the technical issue was. So let's actually get started. All right, this is from the Washington Post. For Black workers, age discrimination strikes twice. Once when they are entering the workforce and once when they are nearing retirement. This is a pretty old article, a couple of years old, but I think it's relevant for this discussion. So let's get into this. Age discrimination sounds simple. The oldest workers face the strongest biases. But new research suggests that rule applies primarily to white workers. For Black workers, age discrimination is highest for the youngest, falls in the middle age, and rises once more as workers near retirement. A new experiment at Texas A&M University helps illustrate the surprising pattern, which has not been widely studied, but tends to line up with Labor Department data reviewed by the Washington Post. Black workers are typically less likely to be hired than white workers with the same experience, but the gap closes in the middle age. The discrimination trend helps explain why, let Let profit. The discrimination trend helps explain why youth unemployment among Black workers remains distressingly high. It contributes toward giving white workers a big head start in the workforce and depresses Black lifetime earnings. Yet another reason a typical white family has 8 times the wealth of a typical Black family in America. The research also adds a new layer of understanding about discrimination in the workplace for younger Black workers who typically face the highest levels of unemployment for any demographic. Economists, sociologists, and Black workers attribute the pattern to stereotypes about young Black people, particularly men, as well as to systemic factors that lead to more middle-aged Black workers being overqualified for the jobs to which they are applying. When he saw the chart above, University of Connecticut sociologist Matthew Hewley was struck by the steadiness of the trend for whites compared to the volatile swoop of the line representing Black workers. It shows hiring managers tend to accept white applicants at face value while subconsciously scrutinizing Black ones, he said. Quote, Black people have always been more objectified, scrutinized, and surveilled than white people, Huey said. Every little thing is nitpicked on a resume or explained as a possible red flag. The larger pattern is common in government data, but the chart comes from a new analysis in the Journal of Policy and Management from Texas A&M economist Joanna Leahy, a widely cited authority on discrimination in the labor market. Leahy noticed the counterintuitive pattern of age discrimination against Black workers when she and her collaborator, Douglas Oxley, asked about 150 business and MBA students to evaluate about 40 resumes each. About a quarter of the students had previously screened resumes in the real world, and 11% had experience in human resources. The screeners were given the job requirements for an entry-level administrative assistant position and asked to evaluate resumes with those qualifications in mind. The resumes they poured over were designed to be, on average, equal in everything but race and age, which were signaled by name and date of high school graduation, respectively.
Hey, PBO, I don't know if you're there. Did Mike drop? I don't know if Mike was gone.
Yeah, I don't hear him either, Complex.
PBO, am I coming across okay?
Yeah, you loud and clear. I was like, I'm like, where Mike go?
Okay.
I
Yeah,
can
that's
hear you.
what. Okay, all right. I just want to make sure. We had problems last night with the micromobility, the monthly micromobility chat. It was kind of the same issue. So I don't know if it was Zoom.
Do you want me to talk about my background until Mike comes back? Because this fits me perfectly.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, let's just go ahead and rock. Go ahead.
Okay. So most people know who I am. I'm PBO. Long story short, I'm 56 next month. I've been in IT for 30 plus years, and I've been in cybersecurity for 15 years. Long story short, I was on a consultant and I got laid off. I was on the bench. They couldn't find me any more work. So I believe as I start interviewing more, being 55 plus and Black, I don't think I was getting the type of jobs I thought or the type of callbacks. The cool thing though is, especially when you're trying to get remote work because it's so hard to get, it'd be 200 and 300 people applying. I would get to the last 3, but I would get the ding letter. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, clap to me. I made it last 3, but if I don't get it, I'm still unemployed.
That's what I'm saying. Like you're basically like the first loser, right?
Right. Facts. 100%. Yeah. I can hear you, Mike. I can hear you.
Okay, Mike's back. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Let me finish this up.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
For white resumes, ratings steadily decline until workers reach retirement age, reflecting negative stereotypes about older workers. But for Black resumes, the lowest ratings came from workers under age 40. If applicants were middle-aged, students rated Black workers higher than white ones for this hypothetical entry-level position. Explaining the age differences, Florida State University economist Patrick Mason has long been cited for his work on experience of Black Americans in the labor market. Like many African Americans interviewed for this story, Mason was skeptical based on personal experience in labor market data that hiring managers would actually prefer middle-aged Black workers over their white peers. Data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics supports this observation to a point. It shows the employment gap between white and Black workers narrows in middle age, especially for women, but it rarely closes entirely. A similar pattern arises in unemployment rates by industry. These rates also show that the gap between Black men and women can, in part, be explained by Black men's predominance in production industries, such as manufacturing and construction, which tend to show bigger gaps between white and Black workers.
Did his audio just drop again?
No, it's
Oh, okay,
just
I'm sorry.
memory lag. The difference could have arisen because subjects in the Texas A&M experiment were told they were hiring for an entry-level job, said NYU sociologist Shatima Jones. Employers tend to assume white workers come from a more privileged background, so when they see them apply for an entry-level job in the middle age, they think there's something wrong with them. When white people are applying for an entry-level job in middle age, employers will think, why are you here? You should have accomplished more, Jones said. But when they see a Black person applying to the same job, their expectations fall, and they implicitly accept that this middle-aged person should be doing entry-level work. Florida State economist Patrick Mason, who has for decades researched the experience of Black Americans in the labor force, agreed. He said that while young white managers doing the hiring probably couldn't imagine their own parents doing a menial job, they might find it easier to imagine a Black person their parents' age doing that same work. In the American Economic Review, economists at the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School revealed deep unconscious biases by turning campus recruiting at the school into a real-world experiment. They asked employers to rate hypothetical resumes, and the ratings were used to match employers with the actual job candidates. Recruiters hiring for STEM fields rated white men higher than identical women and minorities, despite saying they preferred diverse candidates. And employers tended to give white men more credit for prestigious internships. Mason echoed many others when he said he wasn't surprised to see young Black men facing the most discrimination of any group, even as young white men and women face the least. Quote, my suspicion is that if you ask most people to describe a criminal, they are going to describe a young Black male, Mason said, the harshest, most negative stereotype. It appears to be widespread in the workplace. The late Harvard sociologist Deva Pager found employers were more likely to hire a white man with a felony conviction than a Black man with no criminal record at all, meaning the penalty for being a Black man was greater than the penalty for being a felon. Huey, the University of Connecticut sociologist, has long analyzed racial attitudes and ideologies in white communities. He said employers' preference for middle-aged Black workers should be seen in exception to that rule. For the most part, Black people are seen as really not a good fit in the economy. Quote, white people are more likely to apply negative stereotypes to young people young adults and middle-aged Black people compared to older Black people, said Huey, who has closely observed how Black people are discussed within white groups for his research. This was particularly true when white people were described Black people with which they worked or would potentially hire or fire. As Black workers near retirement age, the data shows discrimination rises. Employers may avoid older Black workers because of the well-documented health challenges they face. They may fear Black workers of a certain age are more vulnerable to health-related absenteeism, economists said. Quote, Black workers also face a ton of barriers to working longer that are there for white workers, said Jeffrey Sengerbacher, Boston College economist and fellow at the Center for Retirement Research. Black workers typically have less education and therefore are often doing jobs that are more physical. He said the discrimination Black workers face ultimately gives them fewer assets and income in retirement. It makes them less likely to work and pushes Black men and women into lower quality jobs. It means they are less likely to have a 401k or less able to save. Quote, this isn't about the wage gap, it's about the intergenerational wealth gap and how inequality is exacerbated more and more over time, Huey said. Some economists point to another reason discrimination against Black workers could fall as they near middle age. Employers might perceive them to be a bargain. As a Black worker ages, he or she will, on average, work for less pay than a white worker with similar qualifications. Black workers we spoke with were quick to acknowledge that during the prime of their careers in middle age, they were underpaid and underpromoted, yet they were skeptical that this gave them any advantage in the labor market. Quote, there is a pattern of Black people coming in with a lot to put on the table in terms of education, driving all those things. And they get passed over for someone who might not have half their education, said Michael Wall, 65, of Madison, Wisconsin. Walls vividly remembers when his white manager left and the inventory control department he worked for eliminated the position instead of promoting him. Walls was the only other employee in the department, and he'd been covering his manager's responsibilities for years. In fact, he ended up training new staff on the department's forklifts and software. He just didn't get a manager's pay for his efforts. Well, that's what we're up against, Wall said, adding that it's hard to tell if your individual setbacks are driven by systemic racism, even if the statistics are clear at the national level. It's so subtle. A lot of this stuff is so subtle. This sort of story is common among older cohorts of Black workers, many of whom entered the workforce while the vestiges of Jim Crow still loomed large. They have been denied so many opportunities that even the most talented among them could be applying for entry-level jobs like the ones in the Texas A&M study. Quote, these are people who, if they had the same opportunities that we have today, they could be doctors and lawyers. And instead, they have a high school education, lady said. So you're getting an extremely high quality worker with those cohorts because they didn't have opportunities that they should have had. Boston College's Sengerbacher noted that a disproportionate share of young Black people, particularly Black men, face early incarceration or even death. Despite years of falling incarceration rates, Black Americans are still in prison at five times the rate of their white peers, according to the Pew Research Center analysis of data from the Bureau of Justice Statistics. Among people aged 15 to 24, Black men face the second highest death rate of any group, just behind Native American men, according to the Centers for Disease and Control and Prevention. They die at nearly double the rate of their white peers. Quote, if you're a Black man in middle age, Sengerbacher said, an employer knows you've avoided those things. They've avoided these pitfalls that our society has created for young Black men, kind of like the Hunger Games. Wall said he dodged many of the forces that keep his black peers from working, such as criminal records and bad credit. He credits that to his early experience in the armed services. Even when black workers do climb the career ladder, their positions are more precarious, said Darrell Nelson, 65. He's retired now, but in his time in the telecom industry, Nelson went through a major merger and saw what it did to his colleagues. Quote, there were a lot of structural changes, and in a lot of those changes, I saw a lot of black folks being eliminated, Nelson said. He added that it was partly because black workers were less able or willing to move when the company demanded relocations. Quote, black folks have to work twice as hard and twice as long, hours-wise, and put out a product twice as good as our white counterparts just to be considered equal or slightly better, Nelson said. The Texas A&M experiment did not include enough black resume screeners to calculate how a black person would rate a black applicant, but Leahy said that her results showed the same pattern of race and age discrimination, whether you looked at Hispanic screeners, older screeners, or screeners with real-world experience, higher experience. Like the Texas A&M experiment, the real world has reflected a shortage of black people in positions with hiring authority. Before she retired as a vice president at the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America, Charlotte Collins, 68, got used to being the lone black woman in corporate situations. Collins said the biggest barrier to keeping women like her out of the C-suite and off corporate boards was the recruitment process, which tends to follow the same established white male networks it always has. Quote, I had to say, I want to have representation of non-whites and women. Don't bring me a file full of white men. You've got to try harder. That whole business is just about building relationships, she said. Collins wondered what Leahy's study would have shown if all of the people who reviewed resumes had been black women, preferably over age 40. If more women like her were hiring positions, Collins said, it would begin to change the skills and backgrounds valued by corporate recruiters. Who wants to go first on this?
I'm gonna let PBL go because I want to speak from the traditional recruiter. That's one of my professional.
Yeah, go ahead, Prof.
All right, no problem.
Yeah,
like I was saying, I'll be 56 next month, so this actually fits me perfectly. Long story short, I was at a consulting company. They couldn't find me any work, so I got laid off. So I started applying stuff. So what they said is what I did. I took my years of my high school and my college out. I took 10 years of my experience out. My callbacks went up, I would say 300%. So as a anecdotal evidence of myself, I think a little age discrimination. So as soon as I took that off, once again, my calls went up. The cool thing about tech is they always do background checks. So if a white guy has a felony in tech, a lot of times he wants to be able to get in there up. But two is age discriminations are a little tricky, right? I'm older, so I actually expect to get paid a little more. But shout out to AO, he doing a big thing. He's young. PBO's not working 25 hours straight anymore. I'm too old, right? So there's some give and take there. When you get to a certain age, I think you need to have a certain level of experience and technical background, right? Because you're competing with younger people, right? So that's I guess the balance of, and like they said, though, a lot of older black people is going to take less money. Number one, 401k is not as strong. Number two, we probably got family issues. So like they said, you could probably get an older black worker with more skills that's going to take less pay because, like you said, we don't have generational wealth, so they're going to need to keep working, right? So I think all those build in, but like we talked about, that's why you need to get degrees and get your education up because we already know you got to be twice as good to get the same thing. So we know what that is. We know what we need to do. We know the assignment. So let me know, Mike. I'm gonna throw it back to you. I can keep going. Let me know. So.
No, I think that that's really good experience that you have that you put out there. I'd like to hear what Complex has to say.
Okay. Let me know if y'all hear me okay. You guys hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you, Complex.
Oh, okay. Because Mike, I think there's a question or a comment we need to address too from the money market. But I'm going to speak from an HR position.
I don't know if you're riding your scooter or what's going on with your mic, man.
Really? It was working fine just a minute ago.
It's a little scratchy.
All right, give me a second. Sorry.
Yeah, like you said, it's a little scratchy. But like we know, age discrimination is common. You know, anything is going to double up on us, Mike, as Black men. So we know what that assignment is.
How am I coming across now?
It's a little scratchy, but I guess we're gonna have to work with it. But
Okay, all right. Let me just get. I'll try to do this, and then I'll try to think. That's what I got. All right,
it's really getting bad. It's getting worse.
All right, no worries. Let me fall back for a second.
All right. Here's my experience. While Complex gets his stuff together, we had a I work in cybersecurity, but we had a white guy who get hired for a vulnerability management position, and this white guy had a past criminal conviction that was easily discoverable on Google. They did a Google search of his name, and it came up that he was involved in some kind of racketeering or some kind of grand larceny or something like that. I forget what exactly the charge was. He did go to jail and he got out, but he still had a pending conviction. The thing here is the white IT manager who brought this white guy on was so ecstatic about bringing him on. He's just a great guy. He's a great guy. From what I heard, this guy was terrible. He was just terrible. Didn't retain information very well. Was, not all that great. But because he was white, he was given all these chances. Meanwhile, a lot of Black people were not given the title of a senior security engineer or anything like that. They gave this guy all sorts of accolades until it was time to actually HR to do a background check on him and come find out that this guy has a felony conviction. So this is the sort of stuff that goes on in the workplace. Like the article is saying, I think the article is really bang on that the way Black men are treated in the workplace is vastly different than white men, even at the equal level.
Hey, Mike, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, it's great now. Go ahead.
Super clear, super clear.
All right, so check this out, right? So that's kind of where, and this kind of makes me question a lot of companies' HR practices, right? Because not only was I an HR manager, I had to build the whole entire like HR back the ATS, the applicant tracking system, the everything, make sure it was all EEOC compliant, all that kind of stuff, right? So what I'm hearing basically is that there typically is a pre-screening, right, that has to take place. Now, based on that pre-screening, that should automatically eliminate people that have certain things, like, say, for example, felonies, and say, like, per job requisition, if you've had a felony, if you've been, terminated for, this reason, or that reason, or if you've had, say, like a dishonorable discharge from the military, per the requisition, that would automatically eliminate you. So how somebody with that type of past gets to the interview round, that's the first red flag for me. Number two,
the state of Massachusetts is different. Keep that in mind. We're a Commonwealth state. We're not like the rest of the states in the country.
Got it. Okay. Understood. Well, I'll just say then, okay, that's an interesting note to pin. I would say that in the states that where I was hiring, and I'm speaking specifically to when I was in the steel industry, and I had mills that I staffed, right? There were already prerequisites that would take you out the frame before there was a phone call from me to you, right? So like that's why I was just kind of like, well, damn, how he got that far amazes me. But okay, but if that's the case, okay. Second point here, it also has to deal with the fact that I think effective recruiting has kind of taken a backseat to the automated process. I will say that from a human resources perspective, now that there's a heavy reliance on an AI algorithm vis-a-vis like the ZipRecruiters, the Indeeds, and stuff like that. So now they're using like digitized platforms to kind of actually do pre-screening, in a lot of ways. And it's not what it used to be where I actually read resumes. All right, I would read your resume. And if you fit the bill, if you hit points A, B, and C, right, you had consistent work history and all that kind of stuff, you got a phone call or an email from me. So that's the other part to that. I think recruiting has gone more algorithmic, and from that standpoint, I think there is let's just say a tech bias.
Facts.
I think that based on this article, what they're saying is that also that the development, right, lack of development. This brother trained all these other folks to take on these positions, but he didn't actually get the role of the actual title of manager. I've seen this many times. There's a sister and a brother
too many times.
There's a sister and a brother that I know in cybersecurity who have the title associate director. Now, this is really key because it looks like they're actually important, but it's just a title. Their pay has not really changed other than 1 or 2%. So an actual director of security is getting significantly more by 35, 40%.
Yeah.
And so the associate director title is making it look like, oh yeah, on LinkedIn, it looks great. But in your paycheck, it doesn't reflect that at all because you're taking on a lot of responsibilities such as on-call and, disaster recovery, exercises, tabletop exercises, and all sorts of critical tier 1, R1 application support from a cybersecurity perspective, and you're not getting that pay. And so either you accept the role that you have or you quit and leave and give up all your benefits to go into somewhere else that's going to be the unknown. This is really, I don't think people really understand what's going on here with Black workers. And the article brought up something I didn't really think about before, is that younger Black workers are easily discriminated against. But I know this now. I know this now because in the manosphere, I get emails and DMs on a weekly basis asking about mentorship because they need to try to get into the industry themselves. What's the best course of action? How do we do this? What am I looking for? What's a good salary? What's a good pay rate that I should, pitch? Look at my resume. I get this every week. And so I didn't even think about the age discrimination for young Black men, how they're treated.
Hey, Mike, real quick. So that comment that I wanted to address from New Money Marcus, he said, I got laid off from Apple's biggest competitor. That company is anti-Black and will not promote or develop Black people. I've been gone for a while, but from what I hear, ain't much changed. And then, and then Faber said, saw a woman who's a hiring manager at an engineering firm say that white guys aren't racist. It's just they'd rather work with people who look and think like they do.
But it doesn't make any sense, though. I understand what he's saying. But because I've heard that before too, that white people just rather work around other white people. But that doesn't make any sense. A person who's from the Ukraine has nothing in common with someone who lives in flyover state, Rust Belt America. What other than phenotypical features, you really don't have anything in common with this person, even linguistically speaking. So how can you say you just rather work around them? Because in Europe, they don't think like that at all.
No, they don't.
They don't think like that. So whiteness as a construct has permeated the workplace in a way that prevents, any sort of DEI to even take place from the get-go.
Yeah, and proof of that, Mike, and we, I'll say this, we can move on to the article here. I mean, just look at Mercedes-AMG's Formula One team. Like that's a whole mix of people.
Well, because if you need to get something done at that point, race becomes less of a factor. But what I'm saying here in the corporate space becomes different because like the article says, it becomes the good old boys network.
Facts. But just real quick, because if you look, especially I did a little work in Silicon Valley, they come up with the blueprint, which is Mark Zuckerberg or a young white dude that dropped out of Harvard. I'm like, dude, ain't no black people gonna fit that blueprint. So they think that's successful. So they continue to hire a person like that. But just real quick, that's why I went in consulting, because a lot of times when you get in corporate America, I didn't get the raises. But if I come in as a consulting, I know I'm gonna be there 3 years. I can get high dollars because I'm just advising people. I don't have to get in the corporate muck. I don't have to worry about the climbing the corporate ladder, right? So that's one reason sometimes I stayed in consulting and didn't go into like a traditional corporate America.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a really good point that you're bringing up about the Zuckerberg effect, right? The sort of, I could drop out of school, spin up a startup. I mean, look at Airbnb, for example, just from a startup perspective. How were they able to create this sort of startup that was prone to fail during the pandemic, where everybody had to work remotely and still raise a whole lot of money, right? This sort of thing is across the board. It's across the gamut in terms of how Black people are seen from a corporate perspective and from a startup perspective, and how you look at white males regardless of what their age is. I've watched, we've covered articles before about white males and their startups. This guy is a serial entrepreneur, meaning he's had many startups, right, that have failed. And no one questions the legitimacy of the failure. But when it comes to Black folks, especially Black men, like the article is saying, you're looked at, as if, you could be, really criminalized. You might be shifty, can't really trust you in the workplace. We covered an article before about the brother who worked at Facebook, who was accused of, stealing a woman's purse or something like that. There's really crazy stuff. Like, why would somebody who works at Facebook, makes all this money, steal your purse? Like, what logic is that?
Makes no logical sense.
Makes no sense.
It does, because they got institutionalized racism. That's why it makes sense, right? Like you said, it's crazy. But what was my man Bob Johnson was at the retreat in Davos. He jumps in a Rolls Royce because you could do that. White lady jumped in the back and asked him to take her to the mall. He's a billionaire, but her thing, there's no Black people that could be at Davos for business.
Wow, that happened, huh?
Yeah, Google that. Yeah, he laughed about it. He said, "No, lady, you didn't Google it. I'll look it up and put it." But yeah, he laughed about it. He said, "No, lady, I'm actually here speaking." But that's the institution, because she doesn't see Black people at that level. And you right there, Mike, when you go into senior cybersecurity, usually I'm the only Black person in the room.
Hey, listen, that's a fact. I've worked at Amazon. I actually got hired by Meta, and I decided to take another contract. So, I've seen it. I've looked at the big companies. I know exactly what's going on there. It is a racial factor. The race factor is there. You are not getting around that. A lot of people think that you're in some post-racist, I don't know what kind of dream world a lot of people are in, but you're not in that. You do have younger folks who are kind of used to seeing Black people in certain kinds of positions and moving in certain places. So we have seen a little bit of movement there with some credibility seen with Blacks in certain positions. But on the whole, that is just not across the board. It's not enterprise-wide accepted. It is not. That's a big part of in HR. They're trying to keep a lot of that down, as they say, DIY and all of this. But at the end of the day, you are dealing with a race factor. It still exists. You're not getting rid of it, and it's not going away anytime soon. And you have to deal with that. And that goes from the younger to the older, but it's a factor. And a lot of people are not comfortable with you moving in certain positions. Mike knows, what I do. I've told Renaissance and MOT and are not here right now, but I've had a chance to talk with them, tell them what's going on with my position, and how I had some white guy try to literally fire somebody from my own team. That he didn't. It's just incredible. It was incredible when it happened. But had he was dealing with another white manager or so forth, he would have never done that. But he did that on mine, and ultimately I had to deal with that. But and we straightened things out, and it was taking out a young black person on my team. It was incredible, incredible. It was incredible. But it happened. But I mean, it went down, and I ended up having to, bring out the fangs and deal with some of the people that that I knew that could help me rectify that situation. But if I didn't have any help there, things could have gotten real dicey. So, man, the race issue is big in the corporate setting. It's big. You're not getting around it quickly. This article and some of these other things are very correct about some of what is being expressed and seen. And turning the corner on this, we still got a pretty long way in doing that. That is the reality on the ground. I'd like to say things are so much different, but unfortunately they're not. And even with white women, there are more of them coming in, and they're like white dudes, man. They've got issues as well. It's a bit of a tough scene. I think Mike, some other people know what I know. If Renaissance Man was here, he could speak about it, but that's where we are. That is where we are. It's a reality on the ground. And I'm just gonna leave it at that. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think the article is really hitting on all of these key points and factors as to why you can't seem to, increase your diversity and equity inclusion inside the workplace and in the sense of belonging. Because you have these folks who are just walking around, like Prof said, institutionalized racism. They've didn't just drink the Kool-Aid, man. They're drinking from a fire hose with it. And so I think if you're, because it says like middle-aged black men taking on these sort of entry-level roles at 45, 50 plus years old, right? Middle age, right? That's critical because how do you put into your 401k if you're making the same as a 21-year-old? Right? It's a little bit different. Or your IRA for that matter. And so I wonder, Nagone, if you have any advice when you're doing recruiting and you see senior roles and things like that, what pops out to you resume-wise that would allow you to say, I'm going to hire this brother over this great boy?
It certainly is going to be his experience. If he's well experienced, if he has a decent education, because I'm not even going crazy over the education piece, because as long as he's got a basic education, that's fine. If he's got higher degrees, that's great. But the biggest thing that I've seen working is definitely that experience. Multivariate experience, very important in understanding really also how this individual is as a team player and as a communicator, and really can work and connect with various areas of the company. I have to evaluate, his experience skills and how he deals and integrates in the environments that he's been in. Very, very important to understand that. And you can see that in the resume, but it's also very important when you sit down and you interview this person. So that's key. That's what I'm looking at, bottom line. And as far as a black person, if they have that background, I'm pushing them. I do have, some people don't like some of the issues that I have because they know I'm going to be pushing some black folks. They know it. They know it.
I thought that's why they brought you. I thought that's why they brought you on.
It was funny, because the person who brought me in was a white woman, and it was basically almost no white man need apply. It was really wild, but I had a unique situation. And the bottom line is, yeah, I'm definitely going to expand that. There's no question about it. I was very open about that in the beginning. There'll be no playing around in that regard. Let's just say that. And I'm not going to put anyone in who is less qualified, but certainly someone who's got equal qualifications and interviews well, they're going to get it. They're definitely going to get a look-see. They're going to get a shot. They're going second, third rounds. They're going. We're putting them on teams. We're moving it. That's how it's going down. And see what the key thing here is this. To stop a lot of that from happening, you can't have guys like me in the positions that we are. So they try to keep your numbers down, from people like myself helping to bring others in. Right. So that's where a lot of that is played. You're not there.
What about negotiating salaries and pay? I mean, because if you're a middle-aged black man working that entry-level pay, man, how do you even negotiate that? How do you negotiate your way out of that?
Well, where I am, I'm hiring entry level, so we're hiring mid-level to upper-level people, and you're going to scale as to what that job is scaled for. Let's say the job is scaled for 115 to 135K. Let's just say, all right. I'm not bringing somebody in mid-level at 60,000 or 70,000 because he's a black guy, and we get no, that's not going to happen. He's going to come in at the, at what the job is actually, what the pay rate scale is to scale for. That's how he's coming in. For companies that are bringing people in who have a lot of experience for less money, they're real loose and goosey that way, and I'm not really a part of that, Mike, to be quite frank with you. So, if you're coming in and you're a cybersecurity, engineer or so forth, and you're coming in at $150 or however that's being priced, you're coming in at that rate. You're not coming in less. You're not coming in at a less rate. If you're coming in less than $85,000 or something like that, but you got to be careful of lowballing people, because if you want to have good people on staff, so if you start lowballing folks, they'll take off. So you don't want to do that. So you're playing that. If you're black and you're in there, you're supposed to get the right moves. So that's where I am. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, so it becomes an issue of morality, morale on the team when you start lowballing folks.
Yeah, you start lowballing people. First of all, you start lowballing people. You start losing folks. You start losing good candidates, good people. You start lowballing people, bringing in the low dough. They're out of there. Somebody else is going to be looking for them, especially in this tech market. Mm-hmm. Especially in this tech market, you don't want to be lowballing people. Cybersecurity, software engineering, networking, however you want to look at it, architecture. Don't want to be lowballing folks. There's still a lot of opportunities out here, and if you're at a fairly decent level, you're gonna get your due. I think in certain positions, you might have some people coming in at lower levels, but certainly coming in at the mid-level, higher level tech type of position, you're going to bring some people in at some good rates. If you're coming in for like lower level developers and they're coming in, say, 75, 80,000 or something like that, you may run into that, but you're not going to get a very senior level microservices or Java developer or C++ who's mid-level to senior level at 75,000. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Or have them come in and take that, unless they have no other opportunities around, and haven't really seen so much of that.
Well, I've seen people try to take less to get in the door, which sometimes I think is a bad move, right? I see that a lot of times. So. Like Mike, people reach out to me and ask me questions about cybersecurity, and they want me to look at their resume and stuff. So I try to give them advice and send them to other people, right? Because I don't do career development. So, and the other part about that too, from a senior level guy, like Nagone says, 98% of those guys are going to be white. So then when they interview black people, you could be good, but if you're at the same level as a white guy that reminds him of his nephew, he's not going to hire you. Right. So like Mike, myself, and like Nagone, I'll be pushing in the background. Like we need to give this guy a chance. I'm going to make sure I'm mentoring, right, to get some more people of color on the team. So that's kind of my give back. But a lot of times, if they left on their devices, they're going to hire people that they're more comfortable with. But like Mike said, what's their background? Their phenotype. A lot of, but people, he reminded me of my nephew. I'm thinking, well, hell, if that's the dude you hire, you ain't gonna never hire no black people.
Yeah. In a country that they claim is a melting pot, right? Oh, this country is just a melting pot, so woke and everything else. But when it comes to actually having a diverse workforce, they're not really interested in that, which doesn't make any sense to me. Like, how can you look at football and basketball and be a big fan of all that and see all these black men jumping up and down, but not have any interest of having those people, work next to you? It doesn't make any sense.
They don't. Many of these places they really want more of a homogeneous environment. They want to
Facts.
see they want to see their own around. They
Facts.
want to see that. I've run into it. The only reason why I'm doing what I'm doing is because I have someone in here. I have someone in there. She's an older white woman, which is kind of weird. Older white woman who's taking a look at the bigger picture and not really playing that. I also think she loves black men too. But anyway, I don't want to get all into that. But also
Shout out to us.
uh,
Go ahead, my fault. Shout out to us. Go ahead.
but anyway, her view is, we got to have some diversity. She understands. A lot of us are excellent performers when we're in the right opportunity. We're very good at what we do. A lot of us are very good at what we do. So you have those who understand that, but you have others, like I said, who were trying to get you out just because they don't want to see you around. That's where a lot of them are coming from. They don't want you around, and they don't want to see you getting paid. That's a big part of it too. When you're coming in there, 140, $150, $160, they and above, they don't like it. Others around don't like it.
Facts.
Some of they don't like it. That is something that you just got to deal with. That's a part of that's baked into the cake with a lot of these people. They don't want to see you doing well. They don't want to see me drive up in my Maserati. They don't want to see that shit. You fucking crazy? They'll try to hang you. That's why I don't even go to half of these meet outs in my car. I'm trying to drive around and hang around these people half the time because I already know how they feel. I'm not fucking around with these guys, man. They don't like you. That's just it's just a part of it. You have some who are cool with you, but you have those that are out there that have an issue with it. They just do. That's how a lot of them are. That is the reality. And I'm not sitting here. You can't cry, complain, bitch, and moan. You got to look at the environment, understand how to navigate it, and play it accordingly. And that's the reality. Company politics, the whole game. Understand, like I said, 48 laws of power, understanding Sun Tzu, the art of war. Understanding these things are very important to look at that in the dynamics. The racial dynamics are a big part of the polity of a company. That's a big part of it. Tech is huge.
Yeah.
Tech, you should not be hampered by your race because, if you're a great, let's just grab one. You're very strong C++ developer. You're very strong. It shouldn't have anything to do with what's up. And some companies will be glad to roll with you and have no issue. All right. Just don't have many technical problems. You start having technical issues and start messing up in your code. They're gonna be on you faster than they're gonna be on somebody else. But
what kind of roles are you seeing black folks, black men in particular, in terms of age, 50 over? What kind of roles are coming down the pike for them?
What I see a lot of systems architects. What else? Where else I see a lot of brothers? I'm seeing senior level developers, senior level engineers, microservices, and so forth. Kind of a diversity, though. The reality is, do I see a lot of us? No, I don't see it. Yeah,
not whether or not you see a lot of us, but what kind of roles are being pitched towards those 50 plus demographics?
Demographics, if you are well qualified, you're definitely going to be looking at some director roles, some senior manager roles as well. Some people can be looked at for some CTO positions, depending on where they've come from. Issue is with a lot of brothers is, do you come from some of the companies that they want to see? Because people want to see you come from certain environments that have certain kinds of technology and so forth that they're working with that can mesh with the company that you might be putting them into. But that's what we tend to see a lot of. We do see brothers who've gotten into tech later, gotten their degrees later, so they may be older and a little bit less experienced, and that's a factor.
But I just find it hard to believe that you got brothers who are 50 plus working for Geek Squad. I'm not.
Mike, I have to say I'm not very familiar with that. I'm and I'm not saying it doesn't exist because if you're reporting it and it's there, then it's there. Then I absolutely believe it. But I myself I have not seen a lot of that. I haven't seen a lot of that. The brothers who I've seen, one of the last brothers that I had to bring in, he actually was a senior networking engineer, and he was very sharp, very sharp in cybersecurity as well, and had all the had all the OMGs or had all the alphabets on him, and he was pretty strong brother. And I'd say he was about 47, 48. Came in for some pretty nice bread and interviewed very well, and and got hired. And he's actually out at he's out at the Jersey office. But anyway, we've seen some some decent people come in. I haven't seen as many as I can, but I'm just saying, I'm not seeing a lot of the if you're older and you've come in with less experience because you've gotten into the game a little bit later, then I could see that. But somebody who's senior, and like my brother here was saying, who's coming in maybe trying to get into a company and taking less of a salary, that's cool. But what happens is they take a giant elephant shit on you. So that means you come in, they throw all kind of stuff on you. You're getting paid a lot less, and it can be an ugly scene. So that may not be the best way to go to play that role. But I have not run into that a hell of a lot. But I've seen younger Black folks come in, like had a young lady, young sister, young Java person, try to get lit up by some white boy because he didn't like her around.
They're gonna try you. They're gonna test you with the microaggressions. So if you're in a technical, you got to be extra good. I tell young brothers, you got to work on your craft because when I walk in the room, I'm stretching because I know I'm gonna get some bullshit, but I'm about that life. Let's go.
Yeah.
You have anything you want to add to this?
Oh no, I was just letting y'all go ahead and rock, man. I know you got this next article coming up, so I'm good.
Mike, let me get this one question out of here.
Yes, sir.
Zone 59 said if you 50 plus, you should be a senior management role. That's incorrect because they don't let a lot of brothers in senior management roles.
True.
When I was in there, the white boys used to go around me above my boss because they were cool. I got tired of that, so I just became a senior consultant and came in. I made more money than a CISO, but I'm never going to be a senior management because that microaggressions at my age now is too much. I can just be a senior consultant and make more money. But when you go into management, and Lagon's going to touch on that, that's a different level of bullshit. I'm in those manager meetings, and they're going to come for you. Since I advise them, they love me, but I'm not about that inertia at my age. I got 10 more years and I'm out. So you're not going to see a lot of Black dudes or Black people, period, in senior management.
They are coming for you. It's very political there. It's a different skill set because now it's not just your technical skills, but it's your management ability and being able to get along with certain managers, certain directors that are above you who will throw shit at you just to F with you at times and make it hard for you to be around. And I've seen people get cooked up like I've seen them do it to each. I've seen it do it to each other. So when you're Black, I have this young brother right now. He's taking a management role. His name is Darnell. Really sharp young cat. They like him because he's kind of quiet and cool. But I'm like, don't piss anybody off in that area. You can't do that. You got to play this a certain type of way because if you don't, they're going to come down on you, and then they'll do things to affect your productivity to get you out of there. Wow. And see, you have to understand how that. So it's a different skill set. It's a different skill set. It's not now based on your technical or straight technical ability. That's why you see a lot of brothers who talk and who get caught up in cybersecurity and some of these other areas. They become very strong technically. Then they sit down and they take a background. They're not going to step up and move up the ladder. They're not going to challenge anyone either because they understand that as they move up the ranks, you're now getting into a different skill set that can get you eliminated.
Nagon, real quick, throw this on there though. When you go on management role, a lot of times when they bring you in those meetings, they meeting your spouse. Their spouse gotta like your spouse. It's a whole other different level of bullshit.
And you have to go to company outings and all that type of stuff.
Facts, which I don't do
anymore. You gotta go there.
Facts.
You gotta go there. And that's why they start seeing certain things you may have or whatever. You got to be careful, show what it's just a lot of things that get caught up that can play in your favor or play quietly against you. And then it's a power move, and people are constantly jockeying for position, and they're like, I don't want this nigga getting over on me or to get in a higher spot. That's a big part of that. That exists. You got to understand that. That is a part of the dynamic. And if you don't have certain types of what we say rabbis and so forth that you have to become friendly with to help you, because certain things, people can hurt you in certain ways if you're not careful. You can be hurt in that, and it doesn't have a lot to do with your ability to do the job. Now it comes some other. So there's a big political. It's a different skill set. So that's something else. I don't want to go far off on that. But if we're going to look at getting into the tech game and getting in with the skill set, if you're getting in at a certain level, if you're coming at a developer, not management level, but you're coming in, on the production side and so forth. You can make some very good money there. Your skill sets are going to play a lot. People like myself are going to have a chance to look at you for our various teams, and if you're a brother and you're sharp, you're going to get you're definitely going to get a look at. You're going to get moved in. You're going to get looked at. You're going to get spoken to. Okay, you're going to have an opportunity to interview, and they don't want a lot of people like myself in there giving you that shot. That's the key. That's a lot of where you're where a lot of movement is stopped. That's the reality.
Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say to the point about the senior management role, the senior director role. I don't think they're interested in taking orders from black men. That's a really critical part. They're not interested in what you have to say, and that creates so much contention in the space. I can't tell you how many times I've heard and have seen people go through, and they're not even in managerial roles. It's the idea that you know more than they do about something that they think they should know, right? They don't want to hear what you have to say. They just want to minimize what you have to say and then inject their own ideas into whatever the subject matter is, and then be like, oh, well, Prof, this compliance, assessment, or this compliance risk assessment, it should be like this. And it's like, Prof's like, no, this is the way how it goes, A, B, C, D. And it's like, well, no, I disagree. Well, what are you disagreeing about? This is the process.
Yeah, but what I do though, you were 100% right. But what I do is, because like you said, they're senior, and it used to bother me when I'm younger. But now, like you said, this is assessment. It's your risk. You do whatever you want. It's your money. It's your risk. I should take it personal. I'm like, no, man. You the senior guy. I'm just giving you suggestions. It's your risk. I'm gonna sleep well at night. Just pay me, right? So, but like you said, when I was in a senior management position, I could tell young white guys didn't like give me how I gave them orders. So they would go around me because they were cool with the director, because they were worked together before I got there. So I told him, like, dude, you got to send them back to me. He didn't do it. So I was like, dude, I'm just going to go back and be a consultant. Right. But till then, the duality makes me a little nervous, because I should be in senior management so I can hire the dudes in the chat to give them a chance. Right. So I always go back and forth. So that's always a tug with me, right? I do like being a consultant more, because here's my advice. You pay me. You don't have to take my advice. I could care less, right? So, but now I'm not in a senior position. I could be hiring some people in the box, hiring people in the management, right? So that's the pull and tug of, do I want to go through that microaggression so I can hire people, or do I just want to get this money and go to sleep, right? So.
Well, it is, but like I said, some companies have very stringent, types of protocols, and and you may have, the key thing for what goes on a lot of these companies, and I saw that going on, certainly in Amazon and a few other places, is, because they had a diverse management team, it was diverse. Black, you had some black managers, but as they moved up higher, they tended to leave the company because the politics got effed up the higher they went up.
Right.
Now that was a fact, but there's a strict way of protocol. So at the end of the day, they had to listen to you if you got into a certain position. So even if people didn't want to, they had to, because if they didn't, you you as a senior manager, you do have thunderbolts. You can throw thunderbolts, and you can light asses up if you have to. So people do understand that, but the name of the game, to a large extent, is not to get you there. It's not to get you there, but that factor, with that point of some not wanting to listen to you and others trying to undercut you and undermine you is definitely a big it's definitely there. That's a big piece, and that's always going to be there.
Yeah, let me answer this question from the chat. Faber asks, how do you guys tolerate the nonstop microaggressions without law enforcement getting involved?
Law enforcement, come on, like knocking somebody out.
I guess you can be escorted off company property, if they feel that you're a threat to them or something like that. I think that's what he's referring to.
Yeah, I'll go first. And I'm sure Mike can go. After a while, once again, you just get used to the microaggressions. So you start stretching like, okay, I know I'm going to get the bullshit. It became so apparent. My white bosses would go, don't be turning anybody up in this meeting high time. Like, they come for me, I'm getting them, right? So for me, which is sad to say, is I accept that assignment because I know what it's going to be. My mother told me before she passed away, a man who fools himself is in bad shape. So I know I'm going to get that microaggression. But two, I think, and I'm going to turn it all back over to Nike, getting those connections and familiarity with the people and high ups. As I got in the business, I got some cool with the CTO and CIOs, right?
Very important.
So then I started getting some favor. I'm like, oh, I like this favor, right? So
very important.
The lady asked me, I switched jobs. She said, hey, here's the prime. We know how much money you make. This is my guy. I need you to hire him. I joke with it because we cool. I go, oh shit, this is how white people do it. I'm feeling this. I'm liking this, right? But when you have those relationships, when I worked for a big consulting company, when I was at DOD, those people left. So now they'll call me up and be like, PBO, we got something over here for you and it's your money. Do you want to come? Right. But it took me 10 years to get those connections. A lot of those white guys' fathers had those connections. So they had them growing up. I had to make mine from scratch. Right. So I think that's part of the issue, too, is you got to take the microaggressions. But if you make a few friends and higher up, then you get some relief and some benefits of having higher ups call in your favor.
Hey, Mike, what was the question?
No. What Prof just said was very key, because once people start to see that you've got the ear of others who may be, who have a certain level, that's why I said rabbis and so forth in the company, who really who you're with and you're friends with, and they see that you've got their ear and their respect. That tends to keep the the natives a little calmer. It does play. So that's a part of the playing the politics. Now you're dealing with company dynamics, and that's a different game. That's a slightly different game. It's not just based on your programming or technical skills. Now it's.
But real quick, Nagon, let me throw this in there. I'm gonna let you chime in on that. As you go up the ladder, people have the same skill set to same degrees. It's really done on a popularity. After you get to a certain level, very few times you're going to get a level where you're just going to blow people away at the senior level. Everybody's got a bachelor's. Everybody's got an MBA. I have one. Everybody's got 10 years of experience. So how are they promoting you? It's done on if they like you personally or your connections. Or if they like you. Go ahead, chime in on that.
There's really not a whole lot else to chime in. That's the bottom line. That plays a big role. That's huge. That's huge. Understanding those company dynamics. That's why I say 48 Laws of Power. Great book to read for if you're moving up the corporate management ladder. Very important. Understand how that works. But those dynamics do play a big role.
Facts.
So very important. Go ahead. Somebody asking something.
What about being in the Divine Nine? Does that play a typifying role?
Let me go. I'm gonna step in it. No, because when I went in there, it's very few black people. So if they were Kappa Nu, I'm nothing. They would treat me the same because you very rarely see black people. When I was in DOD, I walked around hugging black people because I very rarely see them. I see Mike. I'm just gonna hug him because he's black. Go ahead.
No. You hit it on a roll. I'm Alpha Phi Alpha. I'm A Phi A all day long, black and gold through my soul. It is what it is. But as far as how many alphas have I really run into in this, in this side of the game, very, very, very few. Though, when I first really started getting in, and I really got some really good some good inroads into this business, it was a fellow alpha who actually helped to integrate me a lot better. So we did have some sharp brothers who did play that. So if you do have others who are at a higher level and they are in the Divine Nine or whatever, especially if you're in the same fraternity, that can help you. That's if you see them, but you're not going to see many of them. But that's a connect. That's a connect that does and can work. So so that is there. But
does it play to a certain city? Like if you're in Atlanta, there's a lot of black people. I'm in Indiana. Hell, like every black people. I mean, we the 16th biggest, but maybe it helps per city.
Yeah, it does. Okay, in places like I would say, from what I've seen in my experience, DC, Atlanta, Detroit. To some level, I've got a lot of good friends there. But a lot of them are in city government and so forth. So there's some other things there. But other cities, LA to some degree, it does play, but and a lot of brothers and sisters who are involved, they are at higher levels. A lot of them are, they're college graduates for the most part, and many, of course, are have gotten their masters and doctorates and so forth. But so they're there, but Mike, it's still a very small percentage of the population. So the Divine Nine doesn't play. It has some role. It worked with me to some degree. I'm pretty social, and I'm able to make a lot of good contacts. But it wasn't. But it's not anything that was actually, what I would say is decisive. Like with white people, with let's say Skull and Bones or ZBT or those types of organizations or Pike and all those groups that have people all throughout, the corporate sector that these whites ride on heavily.
Yeah, let me answer the question. I haven't answered it yet, but Faber's question was, how do you guys tolerate the nonstop microaggression without law enforcement getting involved? You got to pick and choose your battles.
Yep.
You got to figure out what the temperaments are for each and every gray boy that's going to be in there. They tend to be very fickle. White people are very fickle in the workplace. And so one day they're talking about, the NFL, the next day, or, even that same day, their attitude just changed. And it's based on nothing. It's just, whatever, they stick their thumb out the window, and that determines whether or not their attitude is going to be for the rest of the day. And so you got to pick and choose your battles. What's the level of aggression, the microaggression that is being waged against you? And what is a microaggression, right? These sort of small personal interactions that a person may have. Brother gets on the elevator and white person decides that they're going to push clothes on the door so you don't get on, because they just don't want to be on the elevator with you, even though y'all going to the same floor. And so that's one aggression. The other aggression could be potentially, let's say talking about the Colts. If you're using Prof, for example, and they talk about the Indianapolis Colts, Prof jumps in to add his 2 cents, and now all of a sudden they don't want to have the conversation anymore in order to exclude Prof from the conversation. The other factor could be, or another factor could be just not asking, certain people to come to lunch,
or golfing. Golfing is a big one. Golfing, go ahead. Golfing is real big.
Yeah, golfing is a little bit more of a stretch, though, because it's not a microaggression. It could be more. That's more of a larger aggression, right? That's because it's such a broad area outside of the workplace, not in the workplace,
that's right? No, good point. That's bigger than microaggression. Facts.
Yeah. And so these sort of little small interactions that a lot of folks are running into, especially after George Floyd. Even the LGBTQ community is having, these sort of microaggressions against Black folks. I see all sorts of flags in the workplace, but when it comes to, like, let's say Black Lives Matter as a banner, Suddenly they don't want to have that in the workplace, but they rather have all these rainbow flags in the workplace. That's another microaggression. And so how do you deal with that is you got to pick and choose your battles.
I think that's bigger than a microaggression, Mike. My bad. I think that's bigger.
It is, but it's subtle, right? Because they don't have to say anything verbally. They just, don't have the Black Lives Matter banner there, but they'll have that, pink and blue flag there, or the rainbow color flag there. That's the microaggression there. That it's very subtle and doesn't really say anything. And so you got to pick and choose your battles, right? Do I really want to get fired by going after this rainbow flag? Probably not. Not really perfect.
No,
I don't have a return on investment on that. And do I really need to go to lunch with these people? If they don't invite me, is that really going to ruin my day? Might feel a little hurt, but I'll get over that in a couple hours. When it comes to football, they're talking about the Colts and Prof pulls up and then they change the subject. All right, I'm cool. I know not to get involved in that discussion again. So pick and choose those battles. You don't have to fight every single battle. You just got to be able to navigate and understand, okay, this is their level of temperament. Let me sidestep that.
And that's good. And I think Nagone brought that up. And we need to talk about that more. That is the like you said, the non-tech, the non-verbal, the corporate fit. You need to get in sometime to survive corporate America. So what battles do you want to fight? What battles do you want to take? Right? Sometimes you got to bite your tongue. Sometimes they're like, I need to jump in this conversation, but as David Chappelle, keeping it real goes wrong. I'm just like Mike said, I'm just going to step away. I just know if I get in there, I'm going to get heated. So I'm just going to let it go.
Hey, Mike. I want to say this really quickly.
I've been trying to get in for a minute. Well,
okay, I'm gonna say this to Mike real quick, and I'm off. And Complex, you got it right next. Hey, Mike, you remember that day I called you up when that guy was trying to mess with one of the people on my team? You remember that?
Okay.
And I was hot. And they said, "Oh, this is crazy." So I called a couple of my friends. I called Mike as well. We spoke about it, and that wasn't a microaggression. That was that was like an assault. So I ended up having to play that politically, of which I was able to do to stay calm about that. But I didn't. Quite frankly, I really felt like I wanted to grab this guy by his collar and throw him around the hallway. That's actually what I wanted to do. But of course, I'm not going to do that. But that's how. But that's how I felt. That's how I felt. So to answer that question, that was a major aggression, and I had to play that a certain type of way. I'm an older guy. I understand how to handle this kind of situation, but it was it was an unbelievable affront. It was unbelievable, but I had to manage that. So what Mike and them say, choose your battles carefully. It's very important to choose your battles very carefully. And when you do choose a battle, understand how to kind of fight it and be very smart about going about it, because it can, it can cause you problems. The name of the game is don't get too emotional. You can't get too emotional. It's difficult. That's part of the discipline that we have to have. It's a little different. It's a little different. And I'm just going to leave it at that. That's just a part of how things go.
Yeah.
Complex, go ahead, Complex.
Complex wanted to know what the question was. Let me repeat the question to him. Faber asked in the chat, how do you guys tolerate the nonstop microaggression without law enforcement getting involved?
I was going to say, just smoke weed.
Well, the sad part is I'm in the Midwest and I just got tested for weed about 4 months ago at my new job. So depends on what state you are. So
caveat. Depending on your state, but yeah, smoke weed.
Let's bring in Lou. What's going on, Lou? What it do?
What's going on, Mike? What's up, everybody?
Shout out to you online getting in there. Shout out
you're the only millennial on the panel right now, so we would your insight would be greatly appreciated.
Oh, that's what's up. I appreciate that, man. No, I mean, you guys are hitting on the monies with the microaggressions. I experienced this. I think I told y'all this story. Like my first role, I was going into. I don't know if I told. Well, I'll tell the story again for new people in here. So I was new and I had knocked on the door. It's like two doors. You have it's like a door that like buzz you in. Then you go in. It's like a lobby, and then you can access the other.
Oh, it's a man trap.
Yeah. It's like that. Yeah, man trap, exactly. So like I was walking up, and then I was like, hey, what I'm saying, like tap, because I didn't have my key card or whatever, because I was new, and I was like, hey, I'm here, like, can you open the door? She was just looking at me. I was like, yo, like, did you, you know what I'm saying, like, and then she got up right and walked to the door and like opened it, kind of like very, not all the way, like it stuck enough to stick your head out, but you can't really come in. I was like, what the fuck? Like that was a very, what I'm saying? I was, I guess I would, like I said, I just didn't think she'd do that to anybody else. Maybe I could be overthinking it or whatever, but it just, to me, it was like, what the fuck? Like,
No, I had that happen to me.
But Lou, have you ever had somebody look at your code and question the legitimacy of it, whether or not it's something that's viable to go to production, or is it other subtle things?
Not really, not like in that way. I've actually, to be not really, not really, not to be honest. I've been reprimanded before, but that wasn't because of my code. It was miscommunication. We were running some test units, and I was running the wrong framework. But that was just a error. Not. I never, like, nobody ever looked. No, I can't. Now, to be honest, Mike, I got to be honest. That's never happened per se. But I understand what you guys are saying. Like, you said something about the rainbow flag. Like the role I'm at now, they don't get any. It's pretty much remote a lot of times. So a lot of those microaggressions are kind of already like just not even in the question. Like we don't. If I go into the office, we'll chum around, talk about stuff, talk about like the Israel thing came up. It didn't get too, because we have somebody in our team who went to Israel. I think she's Israeli, I think. But nobody brought, like, it was no discussion about it. It was just like, oh man, she's going to Israel. I think like bomb. That was like that was the highest point of it. So nobody really gets into. Oh, go ahead.
No, but Lou, the microaggression remotely could be they go around and engage everybody in a Teams call or a Slack call for that matter, but they skip Lou.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Right?
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Does anybody else have anything they want to add? Okay, well, thank you all. Have a good weekend. Lou never got a chance to even chime in. Like, what happened?
No, Mike, real quick, I got one for you is, and you probably had this, me and this white guy cool, just top. I work for him. I would say something and people would ignore it. He would say the exact same thing I said, and people would think it'd be the smartest thing ever. And he even whispered that to me. He said, didn't you say that? I go, man, whatever. But
man,
that's kind of my guy. So that would happen to me a lot. Go ahead.
You know what, Mike? You know what? So we do this. We do like a focus meeting every Thursday, right? And I will say this. That, like, what you were saying, I have felt this way. It's like, so my like, it's me and it's like two other white dudes, right? So then we all say what we did for the week and everything. But it's like, I was noticing something. I was like, every time it's my turn, they got extra questions. You know what I'm saying? Like,
facts.
But I chalked it up to something else, like whatever. But I did, like, that when you said that, Mike, I was thinking about it. Like, I have, like, damn, how come every time it's my fucking turn, she writing shit down and editing the spreadsheet and everything. I'm like, but they don't do that for them. They wasn't doing more than me. But so maybe that was something I just didn't really.
Nah, yeah, you didn't catch it. It was subtle. But real quick, Mike, the thing though, I turn that around though, is that's good for you because the focus on you. So when you do something great, it's seen. So you can make yourself shine because people be looking for management. Management be finding us. So it's two edges to that coin. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, and I'm the only black dude too.
I was too for years. So I like you. I would say somewhere people want to, when we team pair code, they had a whole bunch of questions for me. And I'm like, your code is garbage compared to mine, but go ahead.
No. And I think it's interesting that Prof, you and Lou both had similar experiences, but both y'all two different age brackets, right? And so the age discrimination and the, racism plays a different role because age discrimination, because Prof, you might be of a certain age bracket, and then age discrimination against Lou because he might be younger than the rest of the team for that matter. And so it does play in. And I think that Lou may have been missing a lot of these subtle, microaggressions that have been going around, holding up, code reviews and things like that. Because he couldn't get an approval in time after 4 o'clock. He then decides to go home, close his laptop or something like that. Next thing 501, that the acceptance of that that code to be accepted into Bitbucket or whatever DevOps tool that they're using. Now it gets approved, and he already closed his laptop lid. What's going on here?
Yeah, no, I feel that. Yeah, that does happen. Like because sometimes when I do go in, I go into like this area, like a seal, and I'm not because I got a clearance, and I'm like one of the only people in our team that got one right now. So they hired a bunch of new hires. They're waiting for them to get ramped up and get their clearance. So I was going in there, and like you said, sometimes I don't get to. I can't answer all the emails until I get out, and by the time I get out, it's like 4:30. So I won't. So now, and I'm on my way home. I'm trying to get out, beat the traffic or whatever. So I'm trying to hit the crib. And then when I get to the house around 6 or something, oh, damn, I got I got to respond to an email or something,
Yeah, facts. No, facts. It's just that I'm glad that the article really touched on a lot of these key points. So I'm glad Faber actually brought up that question, because we always have to kind of revisit that, right? Kind of circle back around and ask, well, how are people really dealing with this? I remember early in my career, you had this young brother from Europe. He was an intern, and grade boy wanted to try him, man. He called him a dickhead on the floor. This is in IT. Called him a dickhead. And,
wait. Who called who? Wait, he called
the gray boy called the black intern a dickhead.
You said the gray boy?
Yeah, we call a gray boy is equivalent of a white male.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, he called him a dickhead. He was an intern. He's still learning IT. He's still getting his feet wet, for that matter. And because he didn't do something right, he didn't box up a PC right or something like that. Because you got 100 PCs you got to build or whatever it is. Called him a dickhead, but he called him that twice. So young brother decided, yo, let's go outside and have a conversation, man. A white boy went up to HR and got this intern fired, man.
Facts. But two though is real quick is DOD's like that to everybody because they're military. Somebody said something a little foul, and I was like, what? Then he said it to the other dude. I'm like, okay. So I think too is like you said, you got to take the temperature of the environment you in. A lot of those guys in DOD are jarheads, so that's the language they use. But I'm kind of strong. Like, what? I'm like the boy. Like, what did you say? So, but like Mike said, you got to pick your battles too. Go ahead, throwing it back.
And I think the key thing is that once this guy called him a dickhead, he should have gone to HR and made a formal complaint on him. And
but that's the thing, Magone. When you don't have that level of power, right? It's a power differential.
It is, but you can't always make a complaint to HR that they have to look at. They'll take a look and say, "Oh, this was," and if you have a halfway decent and functioning HR, and we're not talking about a great one, but if you do make a formal complaint, they're going to have to take a look at that complaint and write it up and do what's called, a quick investigation on that.
Right.
Yeah.
And then what they'll do is they'll bring him in, talk to him. They may, they won't fire him. Okay, let's just say if he's a great boy and he's got juice, they won't fire him, but they'll tell him, hey, listen, don't do this again, or we can't have this kind of stuff going on. This is a problem. Now, HR, is definitely not, is not your best agent, but that's a way to fire back at him. And once you've done that, hey, listen, he's going to try to come back at you on that. But at the end of the day, you cannot have people in a meeting calling you a dickhead in a meeting. That's very unprofessional behavior. And that may be against some levels of corporate policy when you start going into the corporate handbook, because each one should have one. So,
maybe he thought his
issue. But anyway, I'll just leave it at that. Go ahead.
Yeah, maybe he thought his name was Richard or something. I don't know. Well, the thing here is the young boy was a street guy. That's what the programs do, right? They take these sort of wayward youth and try to develop him into tech talent. Well, his street instincts kicked in and said, "This is the red flag, and I'm going to take you outside." and he was ready to throw down. He was ready to throw down with this white boy. And this happened, a number of times. And so, he ruined this kid's career, man. He got kicked out of the program because he got fired from the internship. So ruined his career, put him right back into the streets. And so that's what a lot of these great boys like to do, is like to leverage the corporate space in HR just so that they can actually, start conflict. Because after work, Gray Boy jumped in the car and took off, man, and he didn't want the smoke.
No, of course not. But at the end of the day, you have to understand kind of how to use HR a little bit more from an effective perspective. This brother was not aware of that. Facts. And you can't go running up on people and looking to fight with them. Then again, you can't be in the middle of a hall calling somebody an asshole or a dickhead on an open meeting floor either. You can't do that as well. So, and then there'll be people who are there, and then they'll have to sit down and, if they do a quick investigation on him, they may give him a little slap on the wrist. Don't do that again. And then he's going to sit there and say, okay, well, I can't interact with them this way. And once they start seeing that you can use certain things against them, they tend to chill. When, people come at you when they feel like you're not going to do anything. If they have a gun and you don't have a gun, then they'll come after you. But if you got a gun, and then, they have a gun, they tend not to want to swing on you because, they may get shot as well. So,
well, I don't know if we want to use the gun analogy. We're talking about corporate workspaces and stuff.
But I use it as a metaphorical weapon. You know what I mean? Because that door does swing both ways. But this brother wasn't. He was the street guy, and that's kind of what. He reverted back to the street, and the corporate environment is, the company environment is not the street.
Right, exactly. Oh, I need to get B2B up here, man. He has a treasure trove of microaggressions and just.
Nah, he does.
Horrible corporate workplace hostile situations. Like he talked about a lot. But I want to, I want to definitely talk about this. Now, this wasn't the corporate. This was at my coding boot camp, right? Now, based on what we're talking about, a lot of stuff. So I remember one time I came in, I had my computer. It was like the beginning of the boot camp, and I was just setting up my stuff. Like it was easy, get to turn all that stuff, like stuff I had already been practicing. Where this gray dude just comes out of nowhere on some like savior type stuff. You know what I mean? Just like I just need so much help. I'm like, bro, I didn't even, so I'm looking like I didn't even ask for any help. Like, what are you doing? Like, so yeah, don't worry about it, man. This is easy. I'm like, dude, like, what are you talking about? And then there was another time, this other guy, he had graduated from, I think it was San Diego State, and he had a CS degree. He was kind of like always trying to like, tell everybody what to, you know what I mean? Like, he knew more than everybody. So it was just like a time, it was like an algorithm that it was like a better way to do it, and I had showed how the better way to do it. And he just like got up and like walked out the room, just like hella, like just all type of rude. So that was, so that's some stuff like that. That was the coding boot camp. I couldn't really pinpoint, more from the working example because I hadn't had too many, but I could point out from the coding boot camp.
Else is pretty much.
Now, Lou, have you ever had? Well, not have you ever had, but what's your experience with negotiating salary as a millennial? Because what the article is pointing out is that Black millennials or the younger Black demographics tend to be discriminated against too, not just older Black people, older Black men for that matter. And so do you think you've gotten the salary that you wanted, or have you had to go lower on the scale in order to get in?
Well, so the salary I got now, I negotiated it, and I had another offer that I competed against with it. So it shot me up about a good 15,000. But it came up in conversation. It came up in conversation last week, just out of nowhere. We were just talking about, I forgot what we were talking about. It ended up coming up salaries, and I found out I was making more than a good chunk of people. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I came out with in that, I came out pretty good in that because at first they didn't really want to give me what I was asking. So I was like, oh, okay, well, they kind of made it seem like this as high as we can go. So I was like, all right, cool. And And I guess they didn't negotiate at all. So, but maybe I'm just, but because I'm aware that, what you were talking about people not negotiating. So I came in with that in mind. I was like, yeah, I got to make sure I negotiate something. I don't want to come in undercut myself when they got more in the bank for me.
But a lot of black
offer help too.
Yeah, a lot of black men feel that they have to, go a little bit lower than. So like Lagon was saying, that 150 mark, some of these brothers may say, well, let me come in at like 142, 143, and you're shortchanging yourself. But because they're doing that because you're black, and it's like you got white guys who have half the level of education or half the level of experience, and even a felony conviction, like the article said. A white man with a felony conviction is more likely to get into, a tech role than a black man with no felony conviction. That's insane to me in an economy, because you hear a lot of YouTube channels and stories and LinkedIn articles and stuff like that saying, oh yeah, cybersecurity, we have 1 million cybersecurity roles we can't fulfill. Oh, really? So how's hiring black people working out for you? What's your statistics on that?
Yeah, I know, right? Like, why are they keep expanding these H-1B1 visa programs and student visas? I mean, you know what I mean? If it's that, I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. Yeah, I agree.
And like I said, if you had a position at scale for 150, you're coming at 142 and you're taking that like, oh, that's going to get me in a little bit. That doesn't really do you much good, because you're going to get the same amount of work, if not more, and it's not going to really give you any advantage. It's not going to play to your advantage. It just doesn't.
That's a big fact to go on. That's why you got to negotiate percentage. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you. I'm sorry, bro. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead, man. Say what you're saying. Go ahead. Finish what you're saying.
No, because you're right though. Like, yeah, it has to be like you got to go. Yeah, you got to go for for that. If you're going to negotiate, you got to get something in that realm. You can't just negotiate extra. Yeah, like somewhere it's not significant, because like you said, you had the same work. You know what I mean? So I'm with you on that.
Yeah, well, I always think the rule of thumb is 5% below or 5% above of the posted salary. I think government, they tend to post the salaries. A lot of private organizations won't do that, but New York now has passed that law. Basically, you have to publish that salary up front, or the pay rate up front.
Colorado too. Yeah. If you look on Indeed, it says Colorado, California. There's like 3 states they post. They post the salary of those 3 states. But I think, just real quick, I think imposter syndrome plays into that, right? We don't feel like we're worthy. We don't feel like we belong. So I think a lot of times we get less. We take less money because we're scared we don't have the right skills or the right temperament, or we got to come in a little lower because we're not as good, right? So I think that's part of that imposter syndrome.
No, yeah, that's true too. And then like you said too, if you're not aware, because that what you just spoke of, even I attribute it to this space. You know what I mean? Just hearing brothers talk about tech salaries and negotiating and things like that. I feel like, and then looking at stuff like levels and reading blind and seeing what people are getting out there, to where it's like, okay, man, listen, right, there's no reason for me to shortchange myself. There's so much money out here. Why would I? Why would I undercut when I know what's out there? And I know that, so I think more conversations, more content being made around that is definitely helpful. Because like you said, most people they don't know,
Facts. But from real quick, Mike, my generation is bad about it, because in the 80s, you talk about salaries, they would fire you. So I'm getting my mind a little change to talk about salary and salary transparency. And, I think this area, and especially YouTube, definitely talking about salaries more. Throwing it back to you, Mike.
Oh, no, I was just going to point out that in the article, Lou, I don't know if you ever heard it, if you heard us reading it, but basically they're talking about, black middle-aged people coming in to the industry at, entry-level pay. And, I just find that.
Middle age? I heard that part. What is middle age? Like
40s.
I was thinking 50s. Go ahead. My fault.
Okay. Yeah, I was saying, it always increases, every, so, but okay, that makes sense. 40. Okay. Yeah, I read that it was like a black middle-aged person. They like, oh yeah, give me entry level. But if it's a gray person, it's like, oh, what are you doing? Like, what are you here? Like, you wasted your life? You wasted all that. You wasted all that gray privilege, all that good gray privilege.
Facts. But
that's crazy.
Yeah, I seen that in my when I was working for the state. I seen a lot of middle-aged guys that were on the help desk. They said they got in IT late, and I guess that pay was most they ever made. So it was like 50 dudes coming out helping you with your PC, and a lot of them was black. So it was.
That's what we have here too, Prof. A lot of the support services are black men. A lot of your cybersecurity now are black men. But a lot of your architectural and developer roles and business developer or business intelligence, for that matter, are essentially white males. And a lot of your like Windows sysadmins and stuff like that, they tend to be Indian and Pakistani because the rate is lower for them coming in when you outsource to another organization. But what's happening here is that organizations are now whitewashing DEI, right? And so what they will say is, oh, we have all this diversity. But in reality, you know, he works for Infosys. He doesn't really work for you. And so you have these colorful faces in the environment, but they're not necessarily all on the same page because they don't all work for the same organization. A lot of them are just third-party contractors coming in, consultants coming in, but they don't actually have any stake in the company, right? Stake would mean that you're getting some form of corporate bennies and you're involved in some of the corporate developments and stuff like that, corporate outings and stuff. These people are not a part of that. They're just in the environment. And so I think the problem is that white people, if on a 1 to 10 scale, when it comes to like DEI effort, they stick at 1 because for them, everything is symbolic. Right. They don't really have the true intentions on really moving up the scale. Like Corey, man, why do I keep forgetting? Corey Thomas is the only cybersecurity CEO in the country right now. Only black cybersecurity CEO in the country right now. There, you know, and there's hundreds of cybersecurity companies, and so they don't see anything wrong with not having black people in leadership positions. They're okay with black people being everywhere else, but you know, once it comes to leadership, it's like, whoa, wait a second here, you're going a little bit too far there, pal.
Yeah, but the closer I get to the money, Mike, the less black people I see. So go ahead, Lou. That in my experience, and even now, like I said, I sit in high power meetings, CEO, CTO, CIO. There's very few black people in there because we talking about $1 million contracts, $100,000 contracts for Oracle, SQL Server, just basic stuff. I just don't see, especially black men at that table.
Yeah, we are definitely thin in the environment. We are very thin there. And the big issue that I also see is that not a lot of us are really getting in and scaling in these areas. So I think, you know, we have to address this. And I see we have to address this as an issue from school, from high school to college. We have to really start to address it there. I would even say even in middle school, to be quite frank with you, to kind of settle this up over the next 20 to 30 years. That's really what I believe. And I don't believe I am too far off the mark on that at all.
No, you 100%. Go ahead, Luke. You want some of that?
Yeah. No, it slipped my mind. Y'all were talking about the black CEO thing. It'll come back.
But yeah, but like you said, I don't see any. When I'm in those meetings, I don't see any of those people. And just I'm gonna throw it back to Mike. Is tech is not cool enough for grade school. When I bring that up in grade school, they look at me like I'm crazy. Go ahead, Mike.
No, you're right about that. I think that the reason why you would see a lot of these middle-aged brothers at the help desk level and whatnot is because they've had their progress stymied. I mean, you could look at somebody in you know, resume wise and performance wise and be like, you know what, this guy should be doing something else, right?
Yeah.
And there's somebody there that's making the hard decision to say, no, I'd rather keep him there answering phones and shit. Nah, man, that doesn't make any sense because the logical step from help desk and desktop support is to go into networking or sysadmin roles.
That's right.
Why are we keeping this guy here? Why are we keeping him in this particular role when he doesn't necessarily need to be? And that's why you don't have that upward mobility for a lot of these guys, because somebody's making a hard decision, you know, and it just doesn't make any sense. I think we're wasting talent. I think we're wasting talent because we can't say that we have a cybersecurity shortage, but we have all of these black people in entry-level roles. It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't, and a lot of them are just not, you know, they're not getting interviewed for these upper level positions. That's where guys like me are a problem, because I'm going to bring you in there and get you in there to interview and put you in front of some people.
That's why. Go ahead, Luke. Go ahead, Luke.
That's the issue. Anyway, go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. No, I just want to make sure I just remember what I was going to say. It just clicked. So I remember. So like let's talk about like the big tech companies, right? Like the FANGs, right? See, a lot of them cats, man, like they're just put on game, even like you said, grade school, because they like I remember I was talking to somebody else in the space who was he says a software developer. He didn't know anything about this site called Leak Code, right? Because like all those, big tech companies, you got to, have like coding tests. You got to do like a, make like write code, make an algorithm. They give you an assignment. You got to make this, do this, invert a loop, all that stuff. So he didn't even know about that. So I'm like, wow, if he's in the field and he don't even know about that, that means he's not even prepared to even get one of those jobs. Like you're not, what I'm saying? He's not even in the stratosphere, because that's the only way you can get past some interviews is through those. And then, they had like the little behavior interviews and stuff like that.
Oh,
but like, yeah, and then like with internships, like Facebook and all those, like I think they pretty much intern straight out of like Stanford and like Cal Polytech, those like so I mean, if you're not even in the field, like they're not even talking to you. They're not coming to your school telling you about the internships. If you all the way somewhere else, So I'm just, that's add on to what y'all was saying about like, we got to talk about it. It starts the conversation's a lot earlier than like 25. It's like 16, 17.
Facts.
But the thing here is this is one of the reasons why I don't really go in depth when it comes to like cybersecurity, doing demonstrations and stuff like some of these other channels do. And I'm not knocking these other channels. I'm just making the point that the technical side, anybody can adopt that. If your organization or any organization has a robust global technology platform or structure for that matter, they should be able to skill up anybody else who has a moderate level of understanding of tech to become cybersecurity. That part should be already established. The other half is this level of social experience that people have in the workplace. Because just because, like a lot of these YouTube channels will have like a thumbnail of a black man, of a person in cybersecurity with a hoodie on their head in front of this laptop and whatnot, right? This sort of way of trying to gather you in. You can make $200,000, $300,000 in cybersecurity. Yeah, but what comes with that though? What comes with it? Because if you think that those environments are perfect, you're crazy.
Crazy.
No, just adding on what Mike said is, and I push back because I'm old and people know me. Is I'm like, especially when I was at DOD, I'm like, we train these people how we gonna do it anyway. Why can't we take a shot on somebody who's a little different or bring specific? We gonna train them how we do them. You're not just gonna put somebody down at a Cisco router. We're not gonna put them at the SIL. We're gonna train them so they gonna do it how we want to do them. So why can't we bring them in and train them?
It takes 9 weeks to train somebody in any technical environment about what the institutional protocols are, not the technical, but the institutional protocols. Who do you need to talk to? Where do you need to go? Where's all this documentation at? How does this system work? How does that system work? No one environment is the same. They're very complex because they're very institutionalized in their nature. And so the idea that, we can just skill this person up really quickly, not going to happen. It takes 9 weeks to get somebody, 6 to 9 weeks to get somebody up to snuff just to be in the environment. The other half is the technical part. One environment could be using Cisco, another environment could be using Palo Alto, another environment could be using Juniper. There's all sorts of different sort of technologies that are kind of cobbled together because over time, what has happened is that a lot of corporations adopted cybersecurity after the fact they've established all of their technological foundations. And so they're playing catch up all the time, vulnerabilities, compliance failures, Prof, all this. You're always going to be behind. You're always going to have failures for compliance. You're always going to have massive amounts of vulnerabilities that have not been patched because or remediated because you just don't have the manpower and because they don't see it as a priority, especially your mediums and your highs. And so it's way more difficult than what some people on YouTube wants to make it out to be. Like, oh yeah, I can't stand these channels, to be quite frank with you. All this, I make $500,000 being in cybersecurity. Like, you're lying, man. Stop lying, man. Like, what are you talking about, man? We know the numbers in the market. Like, why are you selling this?
Yeah, that pisses me off. And that's the new thing. Real quick, Nagon, is cybersecurity is the new crypto. I mean, everything's this and that, and we got to flip it, and you're gonna make $500,000, $500,000 in 3 months. So we the new crypto. Go ahead, Nagon. Throw it back.
That's bad funny. What you're saying, but that's true. I mean, cybersecurity is a big piece. So it's going to grow a lot more. I was talking to my grandson just yesterday, and we were talking about, he likes computers. He does a whole lot of stuff, kind of with my son. So he really is into the computing thing. I don't love school, but I love computing. I'm like, well, he does pretty good in school, but he says he doesn't love school. I'm like, well, since if you're going to go to school, go up higher levels, you're going to have to go to college. You're going to have to look to get a degree. And I think cybersecurity would be something perfect that you should be getting into. And he seems to like that. So that's something he's looking at. But that's also a stepping stone to other things. So, and he is in his he's a freshman right now in high school. So he's a frosh. He's 14. So I was gonna say, I think this is the time where we should really be kind of keying our kids up, and if you have grandchildren, I mean, I have a grandson, so we should be keying them into getting into this stuff at these ages. I don't see how we're going to get around that currently, but yeah. Anyway, go ahead. But yeah, cybersecurity is to do crypto. That's funny. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're perfect. No, like, see, for me, and Mike, you made an excellent point with that, and I wanted to jump on to say this. For me, what the great thing about tech is, I know every tech job is not like this, but you kind of should get in a field. A role that you can work remote, right? To me, I believe that's like a evolutionary labor thing, if that makes sense. Like for the economy of the future and stuff like that. In my opinion, the ability to work remote and eliminate significant commuting time, that in and of itself is worth the job, if that makes sense. I'm not saying take lower pay to have a remote job. I'm just saying that you're already ahead of most labor roles if you have that ability. So I like to harp on that more than not just the actual number or whatever salary you get, because how can you quantify eliminating a 2-hour commute, right? There and back, or you know what I mean? Or sitting in traffic and like in LA or something, or New York, when you can just work remote. So in my opinion, I think that needs to be more sold than anything, instead of just a big fancy 6 figs, 500K, I'm balling, no, it gotta be a little bit. Because then go ahead. I want to go ahead, Joe.
No, you're making a very good point, because it's actually safer for Black men. The ability to work remote, man, and not have to interact with a lot of these great folks, man. It actually comes to a big benefit. It's one of the biggest corporate benefits. Better than any sort of bonus at the end of the year or at the end of the fiscal. That's actually really good, because you don't have to go across 7 different police departments, law enforcement agencies, and get possibly pulled over and get your brains blown out trying to go to work or come home from work, right? So it's more of a public safety thing for black men. I think Black women go through it now, but before it was more Black men getting pulled over unjustly.
Yep.
You end up like what's the brother in Ohio who got shot in the back of the head over a traffic stop. Really weird.
Really weird stuff. Like Mike, I've been working in tech over the last 4 years, for some change. And listen, man, I don't own a car. I don't. And I'm just what you said, I have minimal interaction with the police. Minimal.
Thanks.
So it's like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Do you have an e-bike?
No.
Man, listen, I need the guy at my job got one, man. See, I've been trying to map out my how it would work with the commute, because you can't bring the e-bike I was looking at, you can't bring on one of those, you can't bring it on the bus. You can bring it on the trolley, but that trolley route takes me kind of out where I need to go. You know what I'm saying? So I need to, no, I want
You
one
need an
back.
e-scooter then. You need an e-scooter then.
Yeah,
Oh, well,
maybe that's
Complex is saying you need something that's foldable.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, you need an e-scooter.
an e-scooter. Yeah, so just bite it on it, because I wanted that bike, man. That bike was cool, but it was like really big. And that's probably why you can't bring. But yeah, I might have to get a scooter then, to be honest, because that would help out tremendously.
I like the boy, man. That's what we do over here.
Lou, are you 100% remote, Lou, or are you hybrid?
I'm hybrid. I'm hybrid, kind of sorta.
Okay.
Like it varies. I go into the office maximum twice a week. That's like
Ooh, that's
maximum.
too much. That's too
Yeah,
much.
I know. But over the last month and a half, it's been about once a week. But yeah, like last week, I did a couple times. I did Tuesday and Thursday. But for the most part, it's kind of, I can say hybrid, just to, because I got to work in that seal for certain things.
Oh yeah. Well, I work 100% remote, and those jobs I believe are going away. Then two is when you go on Indeed. Like I said, when I was looking, I applied, it'd be like 200 and 300 people applying it, because now, of course, anybody in the United States. So those seem to be super hard to get. Like I said, I got one. I think I'm lucky. And the other thing, too, is called the Doom Loop. I work for the state of Indiana. The governor said if you work for the state as an employee or a consultant, you got to come in the office 3 days a week, which makes sense because they closed down a cafeteria. He wants you to save downtown Indianapolis, right? Which makes sense for his constituents. The Smile restaurants told the governor, you got 40,000 people. You need to bring them back to work. So I understand why they're doing it. I just don't like it. At my age, I'm 100% remote, and I will never go back in the office.
No, and to be honest, I'm gonna keep this. I'm gonna be real with this, because my role can change to where I'm totally remote if I get to a certain sector. But here's the thing, too, man. I was looking at this stuff, and the Republicans were trying to pass this bill to make like federal, workers go back to the office, because I didn't know this. But DC in the U.S. government is the most remote, like I don't know the term, but most remote people. I guess that's the term. Whatever, people working. Yeah, they got the most people.
Remote friendly.
Yeah, remote friendly. But they were saying they would, remote friendly, or what? How the article was saying that, like, they're remote right now. So they were just saying like they have the most people that are remote, working remote. So, and to me, this girl, she was talking about this on Twitter, like like the Black Tech Twitter thing. She was saying that Black people should really look into like working in Gov Tech, because she kind of broke it down. You don't have to worry about like fighting with H-1B1 visas and all these like code tests, and you got pretty much, you can show competency, like you were saying, Mike. If you can show some competency, and they'll train you up and do what they do. So and then you get in there, and she did like an interview with some guy. He was working at Lockheed Martin, and he was a software developer, but he was working on the side. He had like a YouTube channel while he was working at Lockheed, doing other stuff, because he was working remote, and the workload wasn't as taxing as probably like a Google would be. Or, I don't know. Maybe Google. I heard Google, they don't really, or they be taking naps. So maybe not Google, but y'all get what I'm saying.
No, Google, Facebook, all of those fangs have nap rooms. I don't know if you've ever been in any of those facilities. They have what they call nap rooms. They have hammocks and bean bags and stuff that people sleep on, and the room is dark. And so it's meant to allow you to take a nap in the daytime, because they're going to keep your ass there all night to code.
Facts.
Right.
But I used to work for where I was a sub to Lockheed, and the reason why, Lou, it's not a taxing is it's called a clean. They get billed by the person, so they trying to get all the newbies in there, and Lockheed, even for an entry level, they charging the government $250 an hour, and they paying them maybe $100, but their profit is 70% of that. So they want to get many people in there, so your workload is never going to be higher, because they overstaff in the government because they can bill for it. So
so I was thinking about that too, because I mean, when I went to DC and I just saw those tech, I didn't, man, man, dudes are making money in tech in DC. I
Well,
had no idea.
that's where all the Fed money's at, Lou. Where did the
Yeah.
that's the Fed money?
You
That's
know,
the
but see,
biggest
I
money.
guess I had tunnel vision on like just other stuff. I
That Fang
didn't
then? No, man. I
Fang,
work for
not
DOD.
Fang or just like working in general. I just never, I just never thought the money was
Well,
there like that.
There's different different. It's funny. It's like there's like different sectors in terms of like investment capital and shit. I don't think that's well. We've talked about this at length, but it's usually kind of like topic specific. But you know, think about tech that's specific to various industries, right? Like automotive, for example, right? Like people don't oftentimes think about the needs of tech savvy people in the automotive industry, for example, or what about let's just say material sciences and industrial manufacturing and stuff like that, right? People to program PLCs and all this kind of stuff, right? There's all these different subsectors where tech and in various industries integrate. You know what I mean? So, oftentimes, people we talk tech. You think Silicon Valley, right? But then, when you mentioned what you just said about the cats that work in tech in DC, and then, Prof was like, "Well, shit, that's all Fed money, right?"
Yeah, that's
So
Fed money.
that's
Yeah,
where
because
that's where
because
the
I'm not.
money from that part of the tech sector comes from, right? It's like, that's another deep dive in and of itself, But yeah.
Yeah, because I'm out here in San Diego, and this is like Fed, DOD,
Oh, shout out to the
Silicon,
DOD.
Silicon
Navy.
Beach.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Navy and all that stuff. So, but no,
Mm-hmm.
no, you're right. I was aware. Like you could like Home Depot. Like Walmart. You have software engineers. It was just that. And I'll be honest too. Like you got to stay off. If anybody listening, man, you got to stay off like Reddit, like those like tech. Yeah, you got to stay off Reddit because they
Oh,
were like
fine.
really trashing. They were like really trashing working for the Fed as like a software engineer,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just a lot of that was just kind of nonsense what they were saying. They were just basically they were just saying, you won't make the money like if you would in Fang, but like Fang is like 0.001% of engineers even break into that. So
Facts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the difference, Luke. Because when I worked to Silicon Valley, everybody was like this Stanford theory, Fibonacci type code, right? Which is cool. And when you compare that to DOD, it's boring and the pay's less. But like you said, I was making 160. I'm not making 300, but I'm still in the top 4% of black dudes, right? So you got to, and I interviewed with AWS. PBO is not a corporate fit. But like you said, that's still a big bag of money. I think people are overlooking. And like you said, only 1% of the people going to work for Silicon Valley, Fang, AWS, Apple. That's such a small bucket. So
I'll tell you another sector that really I think to our credit, and I want to say, Prof, you were actually on that live stream when we did that deep dive on IoT.
Yep.
Right. So let's kind of go on that, right? See, so integrate somebody who can write code to integrate various devices to various networks, et cetera, like that. That's kind of like almost sort of like uncharted territory in a lot of ways. Because the only way I know this is because just from the rideshare and the scooter stuff that we did, where we're having devices manufactured overseas, and then we have to send them, the SIM chips and all that, and then connect all the IMEI numbers to our servers over here. And, we have to coordinate with them and stuff, and then having the code stack to do all this, right? There's also a sector of tech that I just kind of don't think is really maybe explored too much, but that's say like a global integrationist type of person where what you're doing is that you have a service where you connect various types of devices to various services, right? And what that does is it enables like those manufacturers to more readily bring their products to the market. And then what you're doing is you're serving as the intermediary. You know what I mean? So in terms of like the integration and stuff like that. So now what happens is when the product comes to the market, you then become like their point of contact. You become that person. And that's all just through having the ability to, to do, code integration through API, basically.
Facts, nice.
API integrations. That's another sector.
Facts. Super rare, super rare. Go ahead, Mike. That's super rare.
Yeah, closing thoughts. Let's start with Complex.
Oh no, I'll go ahead and end on that, man. I appreciate the chop up, y'all. Definitely.
All right. Let's go to Lou.
Oh, nothing for me, man. Y'all have a good Saturday. Catch y'all later.
All right. Prof.
Well, just real quick, because I guess I'm the oldest, so our list files on me, right? So we talking about age discrimination. We know what we need to do. This is not new. You should be ready for it. You can get in this industry. Nobody's gonna scare you. And two is the money so good. So long story short, work on your craft, get your certs, get your degrees, and get in the industry. Any one of us up here you can reach out to. We'll help you. So even though we were talking, we don't want to scare you. We just want you to be prepared, right? PBO's never gonna lie to you. Mike's never gonna lie to you. This ain't the get rich quick scheme. You're not gonna make $500,000 in 2 months. You got to put in work, but the money's out here to get. Throwing it back to you, Mike. That's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Prof. Nagone.
Hey, listen, Mike. Hey, listen, great live stream. It's kind of stuff we need to be talking about, and thanks for inviting me up.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. Please hit the like button on the way out. Share the video if possible. Hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the